Hello, welcome back to Miss Bell's classroom. Today we are going to be focusing on science and we're going to be continuing our space unit. So as you can see here, we have the moon. Raise your hand if you've ever heard of the moon or you know what the moon is. Good, so most of us have heard of the moon. So who knows exactly what the moon is? Okay, so we don't really know, we don't really have a definition for it. The moon, or sometimes it's called Luna, is the Earth's only natural satellite. Does anyone know what a satellite is? No? Okay, so a satellite is a space object that orbits another space object. So we live on Earth, and the moon is actually orbiting Earth, which is where we live. So that makes the moon a satellite. And who has a guess? How long do you think the moon was formed? How long ago? Okay, so it was actually formed 4.6 billion years ago, and around some 30 to 50 million years after the formation of the solar system. So when we look up at night or sometimes during the day, we can see the moon and we always see the same side. That's because as Earth spins, the moon also spins around us at the same pace. So we never actually get to see the other side of the moon. So if we look here at the moon, do you see how there are some lighter and darker spots? So these darker spots are called craters. And the craters are caused by asteroids colliding with the moon. So I want to also show you kind of a comparison of how big the moon is compared to the Earth. We know that the moon orbits the Earth, so if we look here is the Earth example, which is blue, and the moon example, which is gray. So the moon is fairly smaller than the Earth. So when you look at the moon at night or during the day, does it always look the same? No, it doesn't. So I want you to look up at the moon tonight and keep looking once a week to see if the moon changes. But I'm going to show you something very cool. The moon has phases. So I'm actually going to show you all of the moon phases here. So the moon has phases because it orbits around the Earth and the reflection of the moon looks different to us. So it has 8 phases. I'm going to draw them for you and pay attention. So we're just going to start with the first phase is first quarter. And the shaded in part is supposed to represent that this part is not being shown, and this is the lit up part, which would mean that we would see that part of the moon because the light's reflecting off of it. And then the next phase is the waxing crescent. And waxing means that the moon is growing in size, or we're seeing more light. So the waxing crescent looks like this. the waxing crescent, and then after the waxing crescent is the new moon. Then after the new moon is the waning crescent. It'll be on the opposite side. After the waning crescent is the last quarter, and it is on the opposite side of the first quarter. After the last quarter phase is the waning gibbous. After the waning gibbous is the full moon. And after the full moon is the waxing gibbous. So, raise your hand if you've ever seen the moon not look the same when you've seen any of these phases before. Good. So a lot of us have seen these. So just remember that the moon changes. It goes throughout different phases, and there are 8 different phases. I will clean that later with some spray. Okay, so now that we've learned about the phases, I need everyone to take out their notebooks and a pencil or a pen, and we're going to learn some random interesting facts about the moon. Take as best notes as you can and pay attention because there will be a quiz after these facts. Okay, so the first fact is at a distance of around 380,000 kilometers, the moon is our closest celestial neighbor. So I'll give you some time to take some notes on that. And raise your hand if you've ever heard of the ocean tides. Okay, so did you know that the moon causes that? The moon has a gravitational pull, and as the moon orbits around us, it pulls water with it, which causes the level of the ocean water to rise lower and higher. So give you some more time to take notes on that. Did you know that the moon is slowly drifting away from Earth? Every year the moon moves about 3.8 centimeters further away from the Earth. Give you some more time to take some notes. It's 3.8 centimeters. It moves away. Okay, raise your hand if you've ever heard that you weigh less on the moon. So that is true. That's a fact. The moon has a weaker gravity than Earth. It's because the moon is smaller, as we saw before, and it's because it's a smaller mass, and you would weigh one sixth of your Earth weight while on the moon. So if you weighed 100 pounds on Earth, you would only weigh 16 pounds on the moon. Isn't that crazy? Does anyone know how many people have ever walked on the moon? Or want to have a guess on it? Yes. Not 10, you're very close. Yes. Not 9. Yes. 12 people have walked on the moon. Has anyone heard of the first person that walked on the moon? And when that was? Yeah, Neil Armstrong. And that was in 1969. And it was a part of the Apollo 11 mission. Yeah. Give you some time to take notes on that. So, in 1959, the first spacecraft reached the moon, and it was called Luna 1. And this was a Soviet craft, which was launched from the USSR, and it passed within around 6,000 kilometers of the surface of the moon before going into orbit around the sun. Cool as that. Let's give you some more time to take notes on that. Make sure you're paying attention, because we will have a quiz. Does anyone have any questions so far? Okay. So, on the moon, there's actually no atmosphere, which means that it doesn't have protection from the cosmic rays, the meteorites, asteroids, comets, or solar winds like we have on Earth. And that's why on the moon, there's huge temperature changes and how it can be impacted by these craters. So the lack of atmosphere also means that no sound can be heard on the moon and that the sky is always black. And raise your hand if you've ever heard of an earthquake before. Okay, so how does an earthquake start? Yes, through the tectonic plates moving. So on the moon, they also have something called small moonquakes, and it's caused from the gravitational pull of the Earth. The moonquakes are kind of like earthquakes. Very interesting. So make sure you're taking your notes, taking all of this information in. Okay. Does anyone have a guess on the moon size for the satellite size? What size do you think it is? You think it's the biggest, the second biggest, the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, seventh? So, no guesses. It is the 5th largest natural satellite. It's much smaller than the major moons of Saturn and Jupiter, though. And the moon is the largest in relation to the size of the planet it orbits, though. So, compared to Earth, it's the largest moon in relation to size. So, the Earth is about 80 times the volume of the moon. And the diameter of the moon is the same distance from New York City to Phoenix, Arizona. So that actually doesn't seem that big, right? Kind of seems smaller than you would think. Did you know that there are over 500,000 craters on the moon's surface? It's a lot of craters, which is why we can kind of see them when we look at the moon. A lunar eclipse is when the Earth passes between the sun and the moon and a shadow is cast on the moon. So that's a lunar eclipse. Give you some time to take notes. Alright, the next fact. The mass of the moon is about 0.01 of Earth's. Next fact. The moon orbits the Earth in about 27 days, and within those days is when you see those different phases of the moon. And another interesting fact, this is the last one. The temperature of the surface of the moon is from negative 233 to 123 degrees Celsius. It's a very, very large range. Right, any questions so far about what we talked about? Okay, who is ready for the quiz? See if you learned anything today. Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to open up to a blank piece of paper, and I'm going to read you the question, and you're going to write the number and the answer. Okay, so number 1, how old is the moon? Write your answer down. How old is the moon? Right. Number 2, please draw on your sheet what a waxing crescent moon looks like. Number 3, each year, how far does the Earth move away? How many centimeters? Number 4, how many people have walked on the moon? Number 5, who was the first person to walk on the moon? Number 6, draw on your sheet what the first quarter moon looks like. Number 7, what year did the first human walk on the moon? Number 8, what year did the first spacecraft reach the moon? Number 9, if you were standing on the moon, would you be able to hear anything? And yes or no, and then tell me why. Number 10, what is a lunar eclipse? Okay, does anyone need me to repeat any of the questions? Yes. Okay, so number 5 was who was the first person to walk on the moon? Okay, so I want you to turn in your quizzes and then I'm going to go over the answers. So go ahead and take your piece of paper out and put it in the turn-in bin. Okay, so now that everyone turned in their quiz, we're going to go over all the answers. So number 1, how old is the moon? Who knows the answer to that? Yes. Yes, 4.6 billion years. Very good. Number 2, please draw on your sheet what a waxing crescent moon looks like. So for this one, what you should have drawn was something that looks like your moon, and then you would have had something that looks like this. Or this would have been okay too. Number 3, each year, how far does the Earth move away from the moon? Or how far does the moon move away from the Earth? Yes. 3.8 centimeters. Very good. We've got lots of good listeners in here. And good note takers. Number 4, how many people have walked on the moon? Yes. It's not 11. You're very close. Yes. Yes, it is 12. Good. Number 5, who was the first person to walk on the moon? Yes. Yes, Neil Armstrong. Very good. Number 6 was, please draw on your sheet what the first quarter moon looks like. So you should have drawn your moon, and this would have been your answer. I could have done something like that too. Either one would be okay. Alright, number 7. What year did the first human walk on the moon? Yes. Not 1959. It was actually 1969. Number 8. What year did the first spacecraft reach the moon? Yes. Yes, 1959. Very good. Okay, number 9. If you were standing on the moon, would you be able to hear anything? Think about the atmosphere. Yes. No. And why wouldn't you be able to hear anything? Yeah, because there's no atmosphere on the moon. And last question. What is a lunar eclipse? Yes. Yes, it's when the Earth passes between the sun and the moon. Right. So that concludes our space lesson today. I hope that you learned a lot of new facts about the moon. And I will grade your quizzes tonight to see how you did. We will continue to learn more about space as I have some more space lessons coming for our space unit. I hope that you enjoyed this and you learned a lot. Good night.